Today's text is Galatians chapter 4 verses 1 to 11. Today we will share the household worship service with the title of Heir of God. Throughout Galatians, Paul warned that the Galatians would return to the pre-gospel freedoms. Today's message is also the word that they sent to them, concerned about the Galatian church. Paul expressed the relationship between us and God in this word that man is raised and raised. In today's word, Paul explains our state in 3 ways. The first step is the heir of a child who is like a slave. Basically, a person who believes in Jesus and is saved can enjoy the blessing of being a child of God. In Romans we say that we have not received the spirit of the servant, but have received the spirit of the Son of God. But being a child of God does not mean that you can inherit. Paul speaks in verse 2 that he cannot inherit until he is the appointed time of his father. In fact, this is a story that can be found in the customs of the ancient Near East, including Rome. It depends on each country now, but it becomes adult around 20 years old. However, according to Roman customs, the law of Judea was 12 years old, and the law of Greece was 18 years old, so that the ceremony could be held and inherited. In other words, before that, you could inherit by status, but you could not help but act like a servant. Paul described this as a slave under the elementary discipline. The second step is to be able to receive inheritance in due course. A fully grown son can inherit his father's duties as a legitimate heir. It is the period set by the father that we talked in verse 2. Although we have the criterion of age, as we have said before, we must know when this spiritual time is, because today the word speaks of the spiritual state of the body through parables. Everyone wants to inherit. In the Luke's lost son parable of Luke, we can see that a little son is inherited without waiting for a time. But the important thing is that the father has the standard for setting the time. At that time, I do not decide. At that time, my father decided. When you think your father deserves inheritance, you qualify. Today, we can see that the Galatian church has already reached that stage. In verse 6 and verse 7 we say, GL 4, 6-7, you are sons. God sent the Spirit of His Son into our hearts, the Spirit who calls out, Abba, Father. So you are no longer a slave, but a son. And since you are lost, God has made you also an heir. Because you are sons, it is already the Son of God. And this is also our state. It is a change of status given to us if we confess our lips to give Jesus Christ. We have previously been slaves of sin, but when we bring Christ into our hearts, we can become children of God. Not slaves of sin. Do you want to change this status? You just have to confess. We will give our hearts. God is promising us through the Word. If we trust that promise, we will be children of God. I hope that we all become children of God. But once you have become a child of God, you will not be a child of God forever. Some are children of God, but others go back to the slaves of slavery. Paul encouraged the church of Galatia to guard against this. In other words, the state of the Galatians now is just before this state. This is why Paul wrote letters to the Galatian church. And now this word is also exhorting us. Many people experience the grace of God, but unfortunately there are those who leave God again. There are many reasons to leave God, but we have to think, why are there so many reasons for us to leave God? We confess that Jesus died for us like a fool. What is the reason for leaving Jesus who died for me? What kind of cause does God blame and leave God? Most of the time, I leave the church because of people. Disappointment to the pastor, strife with the saints, spiritual moral corruption. But is it worth leaving God? If you have experienced true grace, you will not be able to leave God. So today we must pray to experience real grace. I hope that you will enjoy the love of Jesus who can pay you back all your life, but you cannot pay it back. Jesus still loved us so much now. That love is so great that we can pay it back for the rest of our lives. May you live in that love. That is the life of the heir. I hope you will enjoy the life of an heir in Jesus. Sometimes I want to think of love even when I have difficulty. No difficulties can stop us. No difficulty can separate God from me. Finally, I will finish the word by reading the words in Romans chapter 8. I hope that you will enjoy the love that nobody can separate and become victorious every day. Rome 8:38-39. For I am convinced that neither death neither angels nor demons neither is the present, nor any powers, neither nor depth nor anything else in all creation, will be able to God as our Lord.